Evidence of humiliation has started to surface concerning the evil guy who has been seeking to hinder your success. What began as a little engagement has now been discovered via incriminating evidence that cannot be disputed or explained away. However, this individual did not act alone. In addition to them, the whole network of accomplices is being exposed. The nasty attempts made by this individual to obstruct your route forward are now exposed for everyone to see, as their plots are revealed in full front of everyone. They are humiliated in public in a swift and harsh way. Every day, more texts, recordings, and testimonies surface, each one more damning than the last. Their carefully crafted illusions are disintegrating, and the collective guilt of the whole group serves as a potent reminder that deceitful behaviors will ultimately come to light, no matter how beautifully prepared. It began almost imperceptibly, like the faint odor of smoke that lingers just before a building catches fire. You notice things that others don't, like the murmuring that followed your name as you left the room. A strange stillness in talks that were earlier brimming with your passion. Offhand statements that lasted longer than necessary. Strange digital trails capture login attempts at unusual times. File access records are provided without explanation. Shadow accounts observed from a distance. And odd digital traces. You are not experiencing a hallucination. The clues were all present, hidden under layers of fabricated normalcy. You shouldn't have been astonished. A pattern started to emerge, all pointing to the same guy. The individual who smiled at you and pulled a thread behind your back. Despite the fact that this individual was admired by others, they wore their skill as a costume. Reputations are sensitive, particularly when founded on lies. The original receipt had a leaked note that was time-stamped and incriminating, but it was little and easy to overlook. It was not just rumor. Instead, it was evidence. More specifically, solid evidence that something purposeful was taking place just under your feet. It was able to get through the cracks and wind up in the hands of individuals who were eager to learn the truth. Following that, a change occurred. Those who had previously dismissed your insights started to draw connections. In the past, it seemed paranoid, but now it seems prescient. That was the one leak that revealed a secret library of betrayals. Conversations that were once private and confidential are now deemed public records, and screenshots are swapped between co-workers as if they were currency. A single report had just enough information to raise eyebrows and cause alarm. They assumed that the truth would remain hidden. Nonetheless, they failed to understand the fundamental permanency of facts. The leak shed light not just on a specific incident, but also on the history. Further investigation found that this was not an isolated mistake. Instead, it was a kind of sabotage disguised as professionalism or manipulation masquerading as mentoring. The mask did not remain in place, and what was seen behind it was not only flawed, but poisonous. You didn't get here by coincidence. You were directed. If something in your spirit is stirring, do not ignore it. Tap and join to get access to exclusive content, prophetic insights, and a community of purpose-driven people. This is not just a membership. It's time for you to find harmony. Take the necessary measures to become the person you were designed to be. Welcome to the Chosen. The original leak was not only damning, but also incendiary. Furthermore, as the flame expanded, the surroundings altered. After a while, there was no more whispering. Instead, murmurs of distrust became claims. The next sentence was loud enough for anyone to hear. The reality resembles a lion. Let it go. It will guard itself. The lion had been released and was hungry. Panic broke out, and their confidence was shattered overnight as a result of their desperation, which included deleting communications, wiping email threads, and discreetly editing past articles, among other things, in an effort to disguise the traces that had already been imprinted on memory. However, every attempt to conceal the truth resulted in more eyes, attention, and suspicion being directed at them. They felt that removing digital fingerprints would erase the truth itself. Some individuals started to save screenshots more quickly, share them with more people, and document the chaos as if they were corrupt archivists. As you saw them spiral, their calm facade crumbled and they began to behave erratically. Despite transferring culpability like chess pieces, they gaslit the victim and shifted blame. However, each move was predictable. You knew it was only a matter of time until their house of cards crumbled beneath the weight of the lies they told themselves. They had nowhere to hide anymore. They had exhausted all of their options, and the time was no longer working in their favor. There were overtones of fear all around. The endeavor to hide did not just fail. Instead, there was a confession. The more they attempted to conceal the truth, the louder it yelled while being buried. The internet not only never forgets, but it also does not forgive after the fractures have grown into large holes. The digital world sank its teeth in with unnerving precision. There was no leaking of the dispute. Instead, it erupted. A name meme that was once spoken with respect became a hashtag steeped in contempt. Screenshots have developed into cache records, headlines, and hashtags for name memes. Meme dissemination began at a ruthless pace. Tweets began to rip timelines apart, as threads revealed lies frame by frame. The platforms they had previously used to pose and control backfired, becoming a weapon in the hands of the same people they had sought to deceive. The swarm spoke for you, so you didn't have to say anything. Videos were able to reach millions of people in only hours. Anonymous accounts released files with alarming accuracy. Social media draws attention to topics that mainstream media outlets had previously disregarded. If your heart is full of God's blessings, let that love shine. Click this super thank you button and contribute $10 or more to plant seeds of faith that will save countless lives. Your generosity symbolizes His riches. Be a conduit for His grace, and see His kingdom expand through you. There was no longer a way to control the narrative. The thread of fact becomes completely functional. The more they attempted to block the leaks, the quicker and farther they spread from their initial location. They were only found guilty after attempted censorship. The comment sections acted as battlegrounds. Individuals who previously supported the viewpoint became dubious, and public opinion shifted. Without mercy, satirists, artists, and internet vigilantes put their reputations on trial with surgical precision. Journalists detected the stink, and online vigilantes placed their reputations on trial. It was unparalleled transparency, with no place for half-truths or spin on facts. They were not being called out. Rather, they were completely dismantled in front of the crowd. One post at a time. There is a cost to commitment, and when the stakes are raised, even the most committed individuals begin to plan their escape. As time passed, the inner circle, which had once been a stronghold of strategy and secrecy, began to crumble. You could see it in their body language, the imperceptible shift in distance, and how particular names vanished from defense lists. Allies who had earlier disputed their assertions started to hesitate, and the condemned eventually crumbled. One person shared direct texts, while another provided audio notes. The primal urge, self-preservation, shook the quiet from the inside out. Ex-partners started flipping for motives other than humiliation. It was out of fear. The exposure was not decreasing, but rather increasing. And they knew that if they didn't speak out first, they'd be taken down next. People who had been quietly enduring the poison now had the opportunity to speak loudly and explicitly. Whistleblowers came from unexpected areas to provide information. Private group discussions, which were formerly regarded as hallowed venues for planning and hiding information, may have become public. Archives of humiliation. A sequence of screenshots indicated that the strategy discussions were fraught with arrogance, dishonesty, and disrespect. Fighting erupted, accusations were hurled, and they started to turn on one another with the vehemence they had previously reserved for those on the outside. The pretense of togetherness has vanished. Seeing how everything worked like a well-oiled machine, you recognize that the more events unfolded, the clearer everything became. Their commitment was never based on honor. Instead, it was motivated by fear and convenience. As electricity dwindled, so did their dedication to the mission. Under strain, the illusion of control began to disintegrate. And, as Warren Buffett famously noted, the tide runs out, revealing who has been swimming naked. Now, not only was the tide out, but it was also dragging them down. They'd been in authority from the beginning. The master manipulator, the hidden hand behind the mayhem, the power founded on deception, is fragile. And once the structure had split, it was only a matter of time until they began to disintegrate. Every action was planned, and every sentence was practiced. However, authority founded on deception is weak. Initially, it was an outright rejection. In contrast, denial is not an option when the whole world is watching. And the whole world was looking intently. You could see a change in their eyes, which had before been hard and calculating, but were now flushed with paranoia. Their formerly measured tone became wild. Their social media posts went bananas. Long rants arose, unexpected removals occurred, and cryptic threats were given. They attacked not just opponents, but also supporters, friends, and family. The identity they had spent years crafting started to break under the weight of their own imaginations, unraveling rather than just being disclosed. This was a complete psychological collapse. They were able to disclose the raw, throbbing longing that lay behind their anxiety for control, their fear of being irrelevant, and their desire for domination. As a result of the pressure they were feeling, furthermore, without an audience to influence, they went inward and began to consume themselves. Private voice notes were released. They were frenzied, jumbled, and unpredictable. The puppet master had ceased tugging the cords. Rather, they were starting to spiral. It became well known that they were paranoid. They began identifying individuals, fabricating conspiracies, and imagining betrayal, which came at every step. Something that had been intended in the past proved to be unsuccessful. They were no longer orchestrating anything. They were drowning in the aftermath of their own creation. You are not here by accident. Feel the pull. Tap. Join to find out the truth, your purpose, and a community that understands. This is not just a membership. It's your decision. Warning. The following message is intended just for those who receive the call. As soon as I was able to exit via the Salvia Devon Room gateway, I was confronted with the horrible realization that our reality is only one harvested pod among an infinite number of matrices. I saw the archons, cosmic parasites who feed on our energy, laughing and terrifying us while declaring you'll never awaken a single soul. However, something inside you already recognizes this reality, doesn't it? The nagging feeling that you're destined for more, that you have been selected for something greater. There was never one individual involved in this. This was not a single manipulator working alone. Rather, it was a web, a fully formed network of facilitators, opportunists, and quiet beneficiaries linked by secrecy, money, and intimidation. When the leaks grew and their lies were revealed, a deeper truth became obvious. This was not a single manipulator working alone. The disintegration of the puppet master revealed more than just their individual misdeeds. It also disclosed the mechanism that had enabled them to flourish for such a long time. A series of betrayals began to emerge, including IP logs, cross-referenced accounts, and overlapping timestamps. Bank statements began to materialize, tying payments to people no one had anticipated. Suddenly, casual pals became active players. Those who had previously claimed ignorance were now directly tied to payments. Cover-ups and silence were purchased with favors and threats. Each thread was removed, revealing yet another anonymous tip. Papers, emails, and even sensitive contracts poured in as you dug further. It became more evident that this was a systemic problem, a machine intended not just to target you, but also to retain control, keep others quiet, and prevent dangers from spreading. Every piece of evidence led to a system built on organized dishonesty, which included smear campaigns, intimidation, and the use of corrupt money. Names that had never been uttered together before suddenly surfaced side by side in evidence files, shattering the illusion that the crime was restricted to a single event. These protected layers were eroding, exposing their transactional and dishonest connections. You were no longer just viewing folks. Rather, you were seeing a machine achieve a complete and comprehensive standard. At the time, the public was interested not just in the surface of the disagreement, but also in its broader implications. The plot no longer revolved on the collapse of a single individual. Rather, it was about exposing a whole system of dishonesty that was collapsing faster than anybody could stop it. You were not supposed to go through this. You were meant to give in to the desire to question your own value and remain silent while they rewrote your tale. However, silence does not equal resignation. Rather, it is a plan. And now, as their empire disintegrates, you rise up, not with turbulence, but with precision, not with rage, but with quiet confidence. Those they chose, those they wanted to eliminate, are suddenly emerging as survivors, outlasting and outsmarting them. Over their lifespan, there was no need for you to yell. You let the facts speak for themselves, including receipts, timings, and evidence for medical procedures. There are no overstatements or theatrics. Simply said, truth is undeniable and deadly. You moved in controlled quiet, disclosing piece by piece what they had hoped to keep concealed while in public, unraveling with each release. Their grasp on you became weaker. Their attempts were futile. Their lies fell apart. And you are not the only one who has experienced this. Those who have suffered damage from them before you, those who had kept silent in the shadows, started to emerge as well. And your bravery allowed them to do so. You did not return to fight. Instead, you returned to finish what they had started with grace, focus, and unrelenting resolve. In fact, what they saw as a sign of weakness was really temperance. And what they perceived for fear was really knowledge throughout their attempt to dominate. You watched as they shouted for attention. You were gathering evidence. And this is the moment when it truly counts. Even while the proverb, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice, repeats in your thoughts like a premonition, your silence drowns out theirs. You're standing at the curve, administering justice to yourself rather than waiting for it to come to you. The court of public opinion will not wait for the judicial system to catch up. There is no place to flee or hide in a tough yet effective manner. It interprets the facts based on fear and administers its punishment. What started as a murmur on the internet has turned into a shout, with millions of voices united in astonishment, outrage, and derision. The once famous individual is no longer revered or feared. They've become a meme, which is a joke or cautionary story that spreads faster than any counter they can provide. Every hour, crowdsourced investigations uncover more evidence. Strangers develop timelines, swapped notes, and formed relationships. Journalists have lost one of their traditional strengths, the capacity to change narratives. And now, their skill is working against them by replaying, reanalyzing, and recontextualizing. Everything they've stated is ridiculous. It is not enough to expose their lies. They are also commemorated. However, former allies have kept silent due to fear or remorse. While strong people scream out and the media starts to expose, any attempts to reclaim control are met with ridicule from those around you. They were formerly meticulously kept shrines to their egos, but now their social media outlets serve as battlegrounds for responsible parties. The number of comments is in the hundreds. There's no compassion. There is no longer a place for redemption arcs. Individuals are not merely angry. Instead, they are systematic. When someone betrays you, their name, voice, and even their face become shorthand for the crime. They can no longer control the narrative. Because they have lost control over their identities, they have become cautionary stories. You don't watch the fall with glee, but with a clarity that only those who have survived can comprehend. It is not about getting even. Rather, it is about sustaining justice in the language they knew so well. Attention, perception, and control have all been taken away from them when the noise becomes too loud, the evidence becomes too overpowering, and the audience refuses to forget. Those in power of the court system have no choice but to migrate. The occurrence, which was previously believed to be simply theatrical, has now been documented. Criminal suits have been filed, deposits have been made, and the funds have been frozen. Under stress, the barrier of influence that they had previously used to conceal themselves begins to erode. When you watch, you'll see legal teams scurrying to answer to subpoenas they never anticipated to get. Investigations are initiated. Judges who previously overlooked concerns are now asking comprehensive questions. Politicians, corporations, and organizations that previously offered covert protection withdraw their support. It is not because of principle that the system that formerly permitted their behavior to thrive is now acting against them. Rather, it is for survival. One does not want to be seen supporting anything that cannot be justified. Rather than the informal justice that existed in the internet realm, murmurs are transformed into indictments, and official repercussions are enforced. For example, emails that were formerly considered privileged are now being used as evidence in court. Bank transactions detected by algorithms are being utilized as evidence of a conspiracy. Phone records, money trail, and non-disclosure agreements are all rising to the surface like corpses in a drained lake. Legal heat isn't a performance. Instead, it is precise, deliberate, and purposeful. And, unlike public opinion, it does not deteriorate with time. It builds up and punishes in a deliberate, comprehensive, and long-term manner. You don't have to speak or brag. The restrictions that they believed would protect them are now destroying all they have achieved. There will be no more smiling through red tape or hiding behind restrictions. The judicial system now has 100% foolproof documentation. This dispels the notion that there is just one instance of wrongdoing. It was never about one person's death. Instead, it was an ecosystem, a culture, and a fully functional tool for manipulation, deceit, and self-preservation. And now it's falling apart. They are separating components one at a time. The framework that bound their strength together. Murmurs in boardrooms. Favors and implicit protective standards served as the foundation for the ties. It is now evident that the system, which was previously thought to be impregnable, is progressively cannibalizing itself as a result of one collaborator turning on another. Emails or exchanged and disguised financial papers are discovered, linking them in ways they denied during evidence. Every cover-up now indicates a deeper decline. Fraud spawns fraud. Lies, overlap, and abuses of power, which were previously disguised by bureaucracy and collaboration, are now obvious and difficult to hide. The machine groans under its own weight, not because it has been disclosed, but because it exposes its inherent weakness. What was previously a closed-loop network of control is now fragmenting into pieces, such as internal chat logs, encrypted communications, and off-the-record talks. All of these leaks happen at certain time periods. They began blaming each other. The survival mechanism is functioning, and if individuals are forced to choose between saving the system and surviving themselves, the structure will undoubtedly collapse. The general population is surprised by how far things have evolved. The individuals they adored and the names in which they placed their trust. Everyone was dirty, and everyone is involved. The problem has evolved into more than merely a scandal. Rather, it is a reckoning. There is no place for creativity, no Phoenix moment. There is just smoke, silence, and the sound of an empire crumbling to dust. The machine doesn't just stall, it implodes. This removes the potential of reinvention. When you play God, you forget you're still human. You forget that power does not make you invincible. Rather, it makes your fall more forceful. The aftershock starts now. Each of them disappears one by one. Accounts are deactivated, businesses are closed, and public events are canceled. They are humiliated rather than forgotten. Individuals who formerly flourished in the limelight now quail in front of their own mirror. Some people remain mute, while others offer real, robotic, and prepared apologies. But it is already too late.